It's graduation season, and with that, my sister's getting kicked off my mother's mobile plan. What that means for her is she's switching to Mint Mobile because when you're a college student, you don't have a fat wallet.
She's actually pretty lucky, though, about getting over to Mint Mobile because of the savings and the quality of wireless service that Mint Mobile provides.
Say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans with jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue.
All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk, text, and delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along because if you're like me, you've had it since 2007.
I love that we can carry our phone number. This is going to make me seriously want to ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. That is ridiculous.
So this year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/booktalk. That's mintmobile.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Between work, errands, and whatever your group chat is spiraling about today, life rarely slows down. But you don't need the perfect moment to escape into something good. Romance is ready when you are, and Galatea puts steamy, swoon-worthy stories right at your fingertips. Galatea is a reading app built for anyone craving a little me time with an endless library of romance stories designed to leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled. We're talking bad boy billionaires, werewolf alphas, forbidden love, slow burn fantasy, and shifter romance. Really everything you could possibly want and more. Personally, I've been using Galatea to wind down after long work days. Sometimes I don't finish until 7 or 8. Oops. And it's the best way to unplug. Way better than doom scrolling. I tell myself just one more chapter and then suddenly it's so late because I just have to know what happens next in these stories. The audio elements that go with these stories keep me hooked and sucked into the story in a way that other types of content just doesn't. Galatea has over 1,000 bestsellers, new chapters dropping daily, and an exclusive catalog of authors you won't find anywhere else. Over 30 million people have already fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Now it's your turn. Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/dating. That's GALATEA.com/dating to indulge in unlimited stories for even less. galatea.com/dating.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This spring, we are hosting a book club while we prepare our 10-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's Crown of Midnight. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. And each week we'll discuss one book from our spring book club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our flash analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This is part 1 of this week's episode, where we're discussing Powerless by Lauren Roberts.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author. This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel. The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, serious spoilers may be discussed with or without warning. Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised. If you're enjoying the podcast, please check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk. Hey, hi, We're recording a podcast.
I'm sorry, I had to drink.
That's all right. Do you ever get nervous right before? Like, as I was thinking, I'm like, oh my God, people are going to listen to this.
No.
All right. That's great.
I'm sorry.
In that case, hands up. You go first.
Okay. Better than the Hunger Games. Your face.
Oh,
that was not part of my. That was not part of my 10 words. Better than the Hunger Games.
Your face.
A worthy debut novel.
Oh, okay. Mine's 2 sentences. That was YA.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty dark. Bring it back.
Yeah.
Like dark YA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the YA factor really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was YA until after I finished the book.
Until
and I looked it up.
Why was there no sex?
Kind of. I was like, there wasn't even really a real kiss.
Yeah.
Which was fine. There's a reason for it. We can talk about intention later. But then I looked it up and I was like, it is YA. It hits all the but it doesn't feel like YA.
It does not feel YA. This is giving Hunger Games in the best way possible. Now, when this book came out, it did get a lot of shit for people being like, it's basically Hunger Games. And I hate when people are saying like, it's basically this. And it's like, it's all basically something else.
Yeah, it's all, yeah.
Else. It's all something else. Let's just embrace what the uniqueness of this book is. And when I compare something to Hunger Games, I think that was one of the most intellectual YA books of our generation. It had so much thought. It had so much commentary on social hierarchies within the real world and, the manipulation of wealth within the United States, and then a lot of things happening there, right? And Susan Collins is still held to this really high standard and people still flock to her books. It's not really YA. Powerless? It fucks with that.
Yeah, it really does. And it does in a way that I feel is less overt than Suzanne Collins. And that's not a diss to Suzanne Collins.
Yeah.
And it's not a diss to Lauren Roberts. I feel like putting it in this fantastical scene, more fantastical than the Hunger Games were. We've read a lot of magical contest novels before, right? And they didn't feel like the Hunger Games per se. I do fall into the camp of, I think of Hunger Games the second I start reading a contest-based novel, but I'm not actively comparing them. It's just Hunger Games was kind of the first one after Goblet of Fire.
Well, I mean, there were some standout
that I read
for this one that made me think of Hunger Games, though. Like the interview process, getting voted, there was that element. Now, what you're saying is like, this is fantasy, romantasy. The other one, Hunger Games, is dystopian, right. So there is no magic. There is nothing going on there. This is magic. This is a different interpretation of similar themes. Yeah. And which is used in the way of a trial. I think what I walked away with from the comparison of Hunger Games is not more than just the themes, but like the parading yourself around, trying to sell yourself. But again, that's a huge theme that I respect in this book.
I really respect it. Let's preface by saying we listened to this book. We did not physically read this book, and I finished all 3 books this week.
Holy shit.
So I finished the series this week.
Okay? How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm great.
That's why you've been driving to work.
Yeah, that's why I've been it's true. It's so true. So it didn't really strike me until now that the elites versus the ordinaries, the extraordinary versus the ordinary, or not extraordinary, could be allegorical to religion versus lack of religion, Christianity versus non-Christianity. And I bring that up also because after I finished this book, I was like, is Lauren Roberts Mormon? That was the other question I had for myself.
Is she? Did you look it up?
She's Christian. I don't know what denomination.
Yeah. Interesting. I always love religious trauma sniffing out other religious trauma. Yeah. I was so caught up on just the wealth disparity. So let's talk about some themes that we saw, right? Yeah. One of the themes that I saw was social and economic and wealth disparity issues, right? The way that people throw coins in, in the fountain to wish for things and how it could feed people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's literally the same thing you can say anywhere, right? Like, I know, look at Disneyland, even though they donate it to charity, but they write that off. So is it really a true donation? You know what I mean? That scene where she was like, these coins could go help people. We throw money as signs of wish and good luck. And she's just staring at it saying, what the hell? How are you not using this to help others?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are we more likely to throw a quarter into a fountain than we are to give it to someone in need? Probably.
Yeah. I don't carry cash on me anymore. I don't even get wishes. I think that was one of the best themes in my mind. The other theme that I flagged as I was just kind of like listening to it and wrapping it up, I was like, okay, like, Jac, don't forget this. Did I forget this? No. Okay. It's Amy's laughing. We talked about this.
Sorry.
She doesn't audibly make noises
sometimes when I giggle.
I don't know how to describe this in like one word. So like, but I did see this as a theme of a parent could be two things to two different people.
Mm-hmm.
One child can have an absolutely abusive, horrific upbringing, while another one can have the best parent in the whole wide world. And you hear that a lot I hear that in documentaries or with people who've had abusive family members, but then one family is like, no, they were so perfect and wonderful. And it's like, well, two things can be true.
Mm-hmm. Because you're talking specifically about Kai and Kit.
Yeah.
It's also true that abuse takes different forms depending on the child, right?
Yeah.
With Kai, it's physical. With Kit, it's emotional.
Yeah. True.
The other thing that's a huge theme is how much mirroring there is in Kai and Peyton. Their fathers, the way they die, they kill each other's fathers. Spoiler, sorry. There's way more than that, and it continues throughout the series. And I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And I can't say anymore because it gets even better.
It was a great bookend between discovering that one, like they both killed each other's fathers. I love that you said spoiler, because at the beginning of almost every single episode you're like, should we tell people that we spoil the book? And I'm like, this is the whole point of book club, is to have read, to discuss what we read. Staying true to yourself. I respect it. Yeah, like the mirroring aspect is so prevalent, right? Everywhere, from their trauma of being forced to do things too young, right? Like Peyton. Yeah. Peyton. She goes by Pay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Peyton, though, she was 13. She was forced to grow up. They talked about Kai being 14 with his first kill.
Yeah.
They were both forced to grow up too young. They were both forced to do things that they didn't want to be a part of. And now they are both at the whims of other people's commands, because Peyton doesn't blink when the other guy tells her, the head of the resistance tells her what to do.
Callum.
Like, that's another, like, we give Kai, at least me in my mind, was giving Kai shit about, like, you're not doing anything when your father tells you, you're not pushing back. But I was really surprised that Peyton didn't do anything when the other man told her, like, hey, go let them in. Like, she didn't question, she didn't push it. She was just like, yeah, resistance, I'm all in.
Yeah. So I think in that way, authority and like what authority you accept versus resist is a theme as well. And we see that in multiple characters. It's not just Peyton.
Yeah. I accept no authority. Accept every single authority that you put in front of me.
Other themes. I felt like there were more.
There's a bunch more themes. I think those were the main themes that really stuck out for me, though. Yeah. That kind of carried me throughout. And we can unpack more as we talk about this, but let's bring the discussion starting off with Peyton. Let's talk about her as a character, and how do we feel about her as an FMC who has no gifts, at least at this point that we don't know. Don't tell me. And as an FMC who has faults, but she does recognize them and tries to make amends with herself throughout this book.
Yeah, I love that this idea of powerless and powerlessness. Peyton calls it out multiple times, that I am powerless. And you can tell that it's an insecurity for her.
Yeah.
I love that she has to rely on her own strength and her ability that she's honed over time thanks to the training of her father. And I think that's what makes her and Kai equals, is that they both had to become physically more capable than everybody else around them in order to survive. And I think that makes her unique in a world where everybody else has so much magic.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it, but it's kind of putting more concrete thoughts around more like mirroring between Peyton and Kai, where Peyton has to rely on her ability to, like, I was also like, psych, this is, you know, I'm like Hunger Games meets fantasy meets psych. I'm on board, you know, pretending to be psychic. But at the same time, it's not like Kai's powers are, I mean, they're useful, but at the same time, he's also, if he hasn't practiced with that power, if he's not familiar with it, it doesn't really do anything, or he's at the whim of that power. So in that sense, they both are having to work harder than others around them.
Yep, absolutely. Especially, and that's true, because in the sense that if Kai is isolated and nobody is in range, and that's something we see in book 2, he's not capable of doing anything, right? His magic is useless. And so they both have to fall back on their physicality to be safe, to protect themselves. I love how observant both of them are. And I love that Kai can't detect how observant Peyton is. It's almost like she's Sherlock Holmes. Like, that's her power. It's purely observation and deduction, which means anybody can do it. She's just happens to be one of the few people who's been like trained and honed to do it well.
I think when it comes to books, when you're with YA, where the characters are so young, and you're expecting me to believe that, okay, these young people are in charge of doing so many things and are this powerful, it answers that question, right? Peyton has been training, like you said, since the second she could conceptualize, oh, people have powers and I need to pretend like I do. She's been training for that. When she was 13, she was training to how to steal, right? And through learning how to be scrappy, she can fight. Even though she's a good fighter, she's not like the best fighter in the world. She's just scrappy as hell. And then you have Kai, who, again, I would be like, what, he's 20-ish? But he's the enforcer.
He's only 19, I think.
Is he only a year? Oh yeah, he is a year older, because he was 14 when he killed and she was, okay, so he's 19. Normally I would be like, okay, you know, he's the enforcer, but they go into detail of like, his dad tortured him. His dad forced him to stitch himself back up. His dad forced him to kill who knows how many.
Yeah. There was never a moment where I didn't feel like what Peyton is capable of was not earned.
Yes. Yeah. Same with Kai. I
always believed where Lauren took us with those two characters. And that's a hard thing to do. Like, that's super impressive.
I think it's harder to do with YA, because you are dealing with these really heavy themes, these really heavy subjects. We all have been 18. We've all dealt with 18-year-olds. And, you know, if we have any 18-year-old listeners, seen the stats, not many, but dumb as hell. Like, you can't expect 18-year-old me to have done that. And to say that someone is that age and has grown up that way, and you're making me believe this, Lauren did a great job of it. But like, you have to make that character and the environment super believable. And we learn about Loot is that the city that she lives in, you know, it's survival of the fittest, and thickest, probably. Thickest wallet.
It is survival of the fittest. And, you know, it's not like Peyton has gotten out unscathed.
Yeah.
She's been whipped. She's been caught. She's been, you know, punished for crimes. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that despite the fact that she does have skills, it still required making mistakes to learn and perfect.
Yeah.
Instead of being, you know, like, ugh, I'm amazing and I've never been caught once. That's not believable.
No, it's not believable at all. Then you have her friend who she ends up becoming family-like. And what's her name? It begins with an A.
Adina.
Adina, thank you. I liked their relationship. Immediately, I liked their friendship. And pretty early on, I was like, when Jax, the brother, didn't die, I was like, she's going to die because someone's going to die here.
Yeah. Oh, Adina. Talk about a character death that it's not a main character, but it still hits.
Yeah.
And it was still, ballsy.
Yeah.
Of Lauren to do.
At first, when just the way that they were talking, I was like, are they in love? Did they dabble?
Oh, Peyton and Adina.
Yeah. There was just there's just a lot of love happening,
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Is this a little twist that I wasn't expecting here? But yeah, I think Peyton forgetting Adina and then going back and getting her was such a great moment. One, it's a great writing moment because, it's just kind of hard to have characters to constantly think about everything and then to be like, I'm trying to get them to progress over here. Yeah. I can't have her hooked over here. So I liked that it was think about ACOTAR, right? Same thing when Feyre was like, wait a minute, I haven't thought about my sisters. And it's kind of like, oh shit, they haven't thought about their life. I need to get them to be traumatized by that. And again, but it worked with the plot, right? Her guilt is what brought Adina to the castle, which then brings Adina to die.
Yeah. Talk about not a good choice ultimately resulting in a terrible consequence.
Yeah. As I was reading, I was, I'm like, oh, Amy, I would never forget you. I'd bring you to the castle. And then Adina was dying. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I would forget you. I felt like I did a choose your own adventure and I failed.
But that's how choose your own adventure works. Yeah. You think you've made the best choice for the circumstances, but circumstances fucking twist it up for you and you can't predict it.
Yeah. And Peyton, it's just choose real names. You and I were at the gym talking about this, where I was like, just say real names. Just say a real name. It's okay. Peyton. I don't even know what's real anymore. I don't even know what's considered a real name. Yeah, I enjoyed her thoroughly. I enjoyed her dynamic with the brothers also.
I did too.
And how much she struggled with the level of manipulation. And I'm going to read some comments because we have some listener thoughts on this book. I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read it right now.
We'll be right back. As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have shifter romance, bad boy billionaire, forbidden love, werewolf alpha, slow burn, fantasy, teen drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Someone said that they felt like the dynamic with Kit was forced. I feel like I believed every second of both of her dynamic with both of the guys because I never felt like she was romantically interested in Kit.
No, I didn't think so either. I felt like she had to give him attention because he's the future king. I felt like she had to give Kit attention because she needed him for the resistance purposes. But also, she doesn't say it, she doesn't think it, but I genuinely think it's also to keep Kai on his toes.
I felt like she genuinely liked Kit. I felt like she thoroughly enjoyed his conversation. I felt like she was surprised that he is so much nicer than his father. I think it was like a way of getting, not to get closer to his father, but it's like, the enemy, like this is the son of her enemy. And she can't even look at him, but then at the same time he's talking and he's like really nice. And I think it's like when you're just dealing with like a really good guy, right? And you just have that guy friend and it just so happens that they're a hot prince, but you're just like, they're just like a really good guy and you want to spend time with them. But I never felt like she was forcing herself to like him. I felt like she never felt like she should like him. Like there was never a moment of, will they accept me as their queen, or they'll never want me, or how could he be interested in little old me? It was just more of her existing with men and men making those choices around her.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I do agree to an extent. I feel like with Kit and with Peyton comes to the realization, hey, he's a good guy, and I can't assume the sins of the father are therefore the sins of the son, right? So she comes to that realization and is able to overcome her association with Kit, with his father. What I appreciate is that she's not a pick-me. Instead, she's like, I know I should be polite, but I'm going to ask these really hard and rude questions because I'm curious.
Yeah.
And it's more important for me to know those answers than for you to like me.
Yeah. I completely agree. There was nothing pick me about the questions that she was asking, right? It's the same way that if I, put me in front of Jeff Bezos, it's like, how can you look at yourself knowing that just a fraction of your wealth, just the smallest amount of your wealth could feed millions, could help millions of people with their medical debt, could do so much. Like, I understand the concept that it's not ethical to be a billionaire. It's not. Like, there's just too much happening in the world for you to be a billionaire and not find some kind of social responsibility in it. And it's the same way that Peyton has a similar reaction to Kit, right? It's like, how can you exist when these are your people? How can you look at yourself? How can you do you even know what's going on? Do you care? Like, you're a nice guy. So her questions are the same kind of questions that I myself would hope to be able to ask if I met anyone who had that kind of wealth or power.
Yeah. Yeah, because they are not in a situation to ask themselves that because they're too far removed. They should be asking themselves that.
Yeah.
But you need the lowest of the low to be able to confront the highest of the high. For those conversations to happen.
You need the lowest of the low, but you need a very pretty lowest of the low, right? You need a very attractive lowest of the low. Like, that's the thing. Where would Kit have even bothered if she wasn't attractive? And one of the small things that Lauren did early on, which I heavily approve, I think it was like the first scene we get with Kit and Kai, is that one of the, she ends up being one of the villains, but one of the competitors, she puts something down. She's working out.
The lavender hair one.
Yeah. And Kai notices that Kit kind of straightens up when she walks over, as if he's kind of trying to impress her. To me, immediately, it was, Romeo, you're so fickle. You're with Rosalind and now you're in love with Juliet, right? And I got that sense of, I got what Lauren did. I clocked it and I was like, his love is fickle. His interest is fleeting. He places value on attractive things. And if Peyton wasn't so attractive and so interesting, would he even have this conversation? Because there are 2 other contestants who are from the slums.
Yeah. And they're not interesting.
No, exactly. So,
yeah,
you can have this conversation and he can be this great and understanding prince, but because she's pretty and he's interested and he's like Romeo and has fleeting feelings.
Yeah, I'm so glad you caught that because I didn't. But it does do a good job of setting the scene that Kit is shallow to some extent. And the fact that Peyton is attractive, was able to save his brother, who's supposed to be the strongest elite that Ilya has ever seen. Of course, Kit is going to pay attention because that is the kind of person he would want to make queen, attractive and strong, because that's what his father has ingrained in him his entire life.
Exactly. And like Kit's biggest struggle is him not being his brother and going out there and fighting, feeling like his brother's the one who's putting everything at risk and all of that, where it's like, again, Peyton's like showing him, saying, hey, there's a whole ass village or city here for you to save. Like, and it's the same things that I've complained about during our Throne of Glass season, where it's like, Dorian has power. You're a prince. You can do things. You can still bring awareness. You can collect the coins to distribute, right? Like, there's still stuff for you to do. But rather than figuring out what it is that you can do in the position that you have, you're busy lamenting that your brother got to go through all the torture, who we know that Kai went to him crying, upset. We know the toll that it takes on him. He knows the toll that it takes on him. He knows the abuse that he went through. And yet you get to go and do all the action.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think it sets up so well that you don't know is important for later, Kit hyperfixates.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of an obsessive tendency in him, and it's established here, and it's so important for the rest of the journey in this series, which I didn't really appreciate until this conversation. But he's obsessed with the idea of, I want to be as strong as my brother. I want to go do the things my brother is doing. Whereas Kai's probably like, I'm so glad you don't have to do these things.
Yeah, Kai is thrilled that no one else has to do what he's doing. Kai knows what he's doing is wrong, even though he's been so brainwashed that he's just going to go and do things without, ask a question or anything like that. He knows that that's his fate. He's already resigned himself to it, and there's an issue within that. But who Kai is and the way that he recognizes what he's gone through is wrong is what, as someone who hasn't read the series but can make an educated guess, why Kai will come to that realization of, oh, the ordinaries aren't that bad. Maybe I've been in my own head and should make the changes. I can see why he's built more to do that first than Kai. And I can't wait. Yeah, I feel like I've been in such a reading slump. I say that as I've read 2 books this week other than this one, but I feel like I'm in such a slump. I have been, yet I continue. I'll probably keep reading. I definitely will keep reading Powerless, because I just enjoy the dynamic so much of the brothers, and Kit fascinates me.
Luckily for you, I already have both audiobooks.
Yeah.
Actually, and there's a novella in between the first and second book.
Oh, have you read that one?
Yes. So you should do that one first.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the rest of the series. I'm going to be really, really honest. But it's important.
Okay.
There are reasons why you should read it.
Okay. I think what I loved about this book and with Kit is that normally when there's a moment of betrayal, right? When all the resistance members come through the tunnel and Kit looks at Pei and is like, shit, I know what you did. And there's that moment of, oh my God, I betrayed him. Lauren has done such a good job that I was in the corner going, yeah, betray his ass. Feel like shit. He deserves it. Boo. Normally I get really cringe and I feel really guilty and I'm really bad, but Pei gave him every opportunity to be better. He said, oh, I'm going to change. Oh, I'm going to put the money to better, to the poor. Oh, thank you for showing me. She gave him the opportunity to do better. And other than, wow, this is a really hard world, I should do better, we don't see any change from him.
Right. It's all lip service. And granted, it's all in a very short span of time. So I give it that. However, he really gave me Atlas vibes from Trial of the Sun Queen, where it was all like, yeah, I will do it. Oh, of course. You're so right. Thank you for educating me. I don't think it was with malintent.
No, I don't think he's a bad kid.
I just don't think he's capable of breaking away from what he thinks his father wants. He's so obsessed with his father.
Yeah. And that's where it comes down to, right? Is like, he's not going to break away as much as he likes pretty girls. He's not going to break away because his dad has years and years of emotional abuse over him. So, you know, fair points, but it did make the betrayal a lot easier for me reading it, where I was like, you know what? Everyone deserves this. I mean, the only one I feel bad for is Kai. And the way that he's like, what did you do to me? Oh, that killed me.
Yeah, I do love their story, their relationship, which we don't have to go into right now unless we want to. But they both know, or at least at this point, only Kai knows that, like, I was willing to accept my fate and you've destroyed that for me. And now I want more.
Can you describe that? Like, accept his fate as what?
As the enforcer. I've accepted my fate as the enforcer, as the person that kills people.
Yeah.
And
when he meets her, like,
when he meets her and, you know, interacts with her, and then he realizes what she really is at the very end. Like, you've destroyed my ability to be okay with the fate I was given.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's totally his journey. He was nice and numb, right? The love he had is for his brothers and his mom. That's it. Like, that's who he can love. And by being the enforcer, he is protecting all of them, right?
Right.
He is doing everything in service for the few select people that he cares about, nothing more, nothing less. And now you have someone who he does care about. He doesn't want to, but he's, you know, just can't help himself. And I do like their relationship. Let's get into the relationship. I do like their dynamic. Someone in the pros did say that they like their banter quite a bit. And there's something about their relationship, and I'm trying to put my finger on, and maybe you can help me with this, where the banter, yes, I felt like he was funny. I didn't necessarily think she was funny, but they just make sense. Like, their draw to one another just makes sense. The way that they just can't help to be, they just can't help, right? They keep coming back to each other. Didn't feel entirely forced for me. Like, there were still time, like they were in a forest together for a week, right? Like there was day and night. They danced in the woods, romantic as hell. But it just themselves, it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's in this book, but in future books, Kai says to Peyton that you are my inevitable.
Yeah.
And it really does feel that way with them. And it starts out with, you know, he's charming. He knows he's charming. He can have anyone he wants because he's pretty. But what happens when pretty meets pretty?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite, you know, you don't have a one-up. But she does find him charming. She hates that she finds him charming, and on principle resists him. And just that chemistry is enough to make it believable for me. Of like, I really just don't want to. I just really hate everything about your face and your dimples. Yeah, I'm not looking at them.
I think that to each other, they're both almost a paradox to one another. Like,
yeah,
it's everything that they don't expect, right?
Yeah.
Peyton is weak. She does not have an elite power. She should not be a threat. And yet she's the one who saves him. She's the one who brings down a silencer. She's the one who's able to fight. So just that within itself, like, she's everything that he has been taught that is not true, right? Like, wait a minute. I thought my powers and, you know, being a brawny, being all these things was like the most important thing. But here she is, this like weakest of the powers, brought down the silencer. Like, that's incredible. Like, now it's starting to challenge him. And then on the flip side, he is charming and he is confident, and you don't see that in her world, right? Not in Lou. You don't, like, that's really her first experience of someone who is confident and charming and is just, again, a paradox of what she's used to. And then you find out how dark his life really is, similar to life in Lou, in the sense that it's both dark, and yet he continues to be that charming kind of guy, which is contrary to her.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. You know, her assumption is that, and this goes back to the socioeconomic disparity that you were talking about. Her assumption is he's a prince, he's rich.
Yeah.
Of course he's happy. He's got everything he wants.
Mm-hmm.
When she finds out how dark his life has been, but he's still able to be kind and charming and take care of her when she's about to die, like he saves her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course you're going to start questioning your worldview.
Yeah.
About, well, or at least your view about this one person.
Yeah. And when he meets her in her territory in Loot, when she is dirty and on the streets and trying to steal from him. Like, he knows that we're talking Aladdin street urchin type level of things, where he wasn't like Kit, who had to be brought to her world to be horrified and couldn't stop coughing and was like, this is where you lived. Kai saw her there and was still interested in her and understands at every point when she feels uncomfortable with food, right? He's there to encourage her to eat. You know, we got a food is power moment.
Yeah.
But, you know, but I think it comes also from a place of, he knows where she comes from. He knows where she grew up in and what that means, because he spent time in Loot and he gets what being from there means.
Yeah, you can't be mad at someone who's cognizant of other people.
Yeah.
And that maybe their circumstances don't allow them to enjoy this moment the way other privileged people have.
Yeah.
And adapting to meet them where they're at, rather than forcing them to do things that you would rather they do.
I do enjoy them thoroughly, especially since I don't think this is going to be like a fated mate situation, but there is a fated aspect about them. There was like a moment where I was like, okay, so she's going to kill his dad, the king. Like, that's coming down to. Like, that's going to be hard to get back from. And then we find out that Kit killed her dad. I was like, great.
You mean Kai?
Or Kai. Yeah, we find out Kai killed her dad. I was like, great. They're even.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. We're okay. That's all right.
And it's a great way to, you know, I do feel like recent trends have been, you've got to make the love interest, especially if it gets spicy in book one, you've got to make the love interest an enemy for book two, so that you can have the will they, won't they play out again.
Yeah.
And everybody loves an enemies to lovers. Who doesn't? So yes, I you know, some of these twists you see coming, it still was well executed.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise, but it was poetic.
Yeah. And that's what makes it great.
Yeah. I don't need to be shocked that Kai is the one who killed her dad. I thought they did good job of leaving clues. Now, it wasn't one of those things where I predicted, but it was, I mean, I could tell that the king wasn't the one who killed her dad, because why would a king go to the slums to go kill for himself? / when the leader of the resistance, when she was like, the king killed my dad, he kind of made a face, and that for a while I thought he killed her dad. So when it came,
I did too, actually. I did,
right? I was like, that was the man. And then when it came down to, oh, Kai was the one to do it, I wasn't rocked by it because it made sense. However, it made sense because of good setup and good writing. I don't need to be rocked by things. I need it to be poetic and done well.
Yep. Agreed. And it was done well.
Yeah, it was done well. And it just made me root for her, for Peyton, so much more, because again, as everything is going tits up, and I'm just like, you know what? I want the brothers to suffer. Like, they had every opportunity to accept that ordinaries do not have a disease. There is nothing that, and I could say like, oh, if you had just been honest with them, if you had just said, hey, I'm an ordinary there, I didn't feel that way. I did not feel like, you know, maybe they listen if she would just tell them, be honest. Like, my whole thing with books is like, what would happen if people were just honest? And I am a firm believer that if I read a book and people aren't being honest, and I'm just like, it's annoying me. Here's a great example. You know, the movie Ever After? You know, when Danielle is trying to say goodbye to the prince, but she had just been like whipped from her mom and stuff. My method in this, and she's trying to tell him like who she is, but not really, but say goodbye. Show him your back first and then reveal who you are. And then he'll be like, I'll protect you. And it's like, yes, that's exactly it. So my mind's constantly working on how to emotionally manipulate a situation to your best benefit.
Sounds like Jac.
That's, yep. Slytherin. And people are like, millennial cringe. Let us have our joy. Yeah, I think that there was no moment that I could emotionally manipulate in here.
Yeah, there was never a point where I felt like, well, Peyton, if you just tell them you're ordinary, it will all be fine.
Yeah.
Right? They'll all understand, because there is a zealousness to what it means to be elite, what it means to get rid of ordinaries, how you're kind of relegated to the slums if you're mundane.
Yeah.
And I love that there's
hierarchies within.
Yes, exactly. The stratification, because that's very human nature.
Yeah.
You've got to make the top as small as possible.
It's so true. I hate, God, bring it all down. Like, even within this world where being ordinary is the worst thing you can do, being mundane is still arguably just as bad.
Yep.
What,
and
you
then,
get to exist. That's it.
Right. And then there's the defensive elites who aren't as great as the offensive elites.
Yeah.
Like,
and you have the seers, and you have like all the projectors, like
the sites.
The sites. Yeah. I really, let's talk about the magic system. I really enjoyed this magic system, and I also appreciate, like, name them what it is. Name it simple.
I
sites,
agree.
They see shit. Brawny, they be strong.
Yeah. No, I agree too. I am camp keep it simple.
Yeah.
So I did love that as well. And what's interesting is that they do have electricity. They do have light bulbs.
Yeah.
And still they choose to utilize magic instead of technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is because it allows them to continue to encourage stratification. Because if you create technology, you can give people access.
Yeah.
And they don't want to help people have access.
The elite and the power, not just in books, but in society and the world, will hoard control and accessibility for themselves before they will give it over.
Mm-hmm.
Example, like you said here, electricity. That was the same way in the real world too, right? Only the most wealthy had electricity, and then all of a sudden it becomes accessible to everyone. And that's why education is so expensive today too. Make it harder, make it more elite. If you make it available to everyone, then suddenly you're allowing people to have free thought, educated free thought. And then it becomes a whole other issue. And this is such a good example of that. Good catch. Good freaking catch.
I mean, I think that Lauren did an excellent job exploring some really deep themes about humanity and society without being overt about it, with making it still feel like a magical adventure.
Yeah.
Which the next two books feel that way too, which is amazing, but it does continue to be social commentary.
I love a social commentary book. It gets me riled up. It gets me fired. It definitely, where I'm like, burn it all down again. It's my go-to, burn it all down. Just, I mean, if we, let me get on my TED Talk. The fact that public education for children is not equal for all kids is bullshit. The fact that's because of where you live and what money your family has and does not have dictates the level of education that you get in a public system. It blows my mind. It blows my mind, because then you want the powerful to be powerful. That's it. Because if everyone has access to food, wealth, and to food, basic amenities, right? Food, shelter, education, then suddenly your control, or the control you think you have, lessens. I'm excited to see what other commentary that she has in her other books.
Some of it's a lot of the same, but in different contexts, but it's still good. But what I enjoy as well that you get to see in future books is how the stratification among the elite is mirrored by the stratification among the poor. Like, the poor aren't saints either.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's, again, survival of the fittest.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Peyton was stealing amongst her own citizens in the area of loot, like or the fact that it starts off with her stealing from the seamstress, and she makes a comment of, I steal from her at least twice a month. You think she'd do better by now? Yeah. Immediately, she's not a saint, right? Like, she laughs at the fact of, hey, I got around her and I stole more. And yet in the next page, basically, she describes like, oh, everyone in loot is ends meet, barely surviving. So here she is, barely surviving, stealing from someone else who's also barely surviving. It's a vicious cycle. Like you said, not without her own fault. And it's not like everyone in loot is are perfect citizens, but they're also brought to do what they feel like they need to do in order to survive. And, that's not their fault.
Right. And it's also why the king and this system is allowed to continue, because there's no one there to advocate. There's no one there to say, it's okay. There's no successful ordinary who is as rich as the rest of the elites who can be a spokesperson, right? Everybody who falls into the class of persecution is just trying to survive.
Yes. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. If you'd like to submit your take on any of the books we plan to discuss later this spring, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener thoughts and submissions.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye.
As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have shifter romance, bad boy billionaire, forbidden love, werewolf alpha, slow burn fantasy, teen drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.